It's Dan McGrath, later night, and I'm doing my favorite hikes with my dad, Tom McGrath, and best road trips with Tom McGrath. I think I have to let the dog out here. I have to go around because I have the wire. And here he goes. This is my dog, buddy. Go out there and bark at everybody. Come on. It's late, buddy. You shouldn't have to bark too much. Go get it. So I'm gonna go with my life's history of hikes and road trips with my father, Tom McGrath. Tom McGrath, standing 5'11", weighing 195 pounds, out of San Francisco, California. The projects down at Candlestick, which no longer stand. And so my mom and dad moved us from Westlake, Daly City. Westlake, Daly City in 1975, September 75. We ended up moving here to Marin County, Blackstone Canyon, part of Big Rock Ridge here in Marinwood, Santa Fe. And so when we first got here, my dad thought we had moved to the country because he was from the projects, Candlestick, grew up his whole life in San Francisco mostly. He moved around before that. But so he was from the city. He was a cop. He became a cop he was a fireman, I think in 62, 63. He became a cop in 64 until about 91, 92, somewhere there. So when he moved us to Marinwood in September 75, we ended up with a canyon behind us, right? A canyon is fairly good size. I'd say, if I would say the entire acreage, somewhere in the 1,500 to 2,500 range. It's pretty big. We had a nice couple of creeks there. The main creek. So they call it Blackstone Canyon because the road ended. They named all of the tract housing here after stones: Blackstone, Valley Stone, Heatherstone, Rhinestone, right? So it's just tract housing, generic names. So there's really no name for it. I call it Tom McGrath Memorial Canyon. So when we first got here, he got a goat because he thought we lived in the country. So we got ourselves a baby goat, Billy the goat, right? In 76, and then in the fall of 70, probably around the same time, we got a dog. He got a dog named, it was supposed to be a golden retriever named Mickey. And he got him in probably October 76, so about a year after we moved here. And Mickey turned out to be the original doodle. He was a probably golden retriever, possibly poodle, mixed with a sheepdog. Amazing dog, right? He was a light tan color, just unbelievably beautiful dog, and a crazy dog. What a life that dog lived. This entire thing would be about the dog, right? So he got Mickey, and he got him at some restaurant in the city somewhere. He's a cop, right? You go to the store, they say, "Hey, you want a free drink? You want a free coffee? You want a free meal?" Because you're a cop, so if you're in there, it makes them feel sick. So we ended up getting this free dog, which is supposed to be a golden retriever. It ended up being this labradoodle, not a labradoodle. It ended up being a sheepdog mixed with a golden retriever, probably. Just a beautiful dog. So, but when he got him, we had this goat that he just got. So the goat and Mickey, the puppy, would go up into the hills behind us. The canyon, we call it. The canyon, Blackstone Canyon, we call it. We were the last house on the block for 14 years until they built these McMansions behind us in the late 80s, early 90s. So we had the lot. We were right at the edge. We had a monastery across the street. So monastery, us, We had a little orchard behind us, and we had the dogs could do whatever they wanted, and the goat. So my dad started taking us hiking when I was probably about 6, almost 7 years old. And we go out up in the canyon, and we had this goat with the dog, which the goat taught the dog how to run straight up hills like a goat. So Mickey became the most athletic dog of all time because he could run straight up hills like a flipping goat. And back then, before different storms over the last 45 years changed the course of the creek, there used to be a bunch of swimming holes for the dogs. So Mickey would go in, he'd go swimming in the holes, and he would pick up the biggest rock possible. I'm talking rocks probably about this big, right? So the size of my head at least. And he would just carry it all the way home with his strong neck. And like a 15-pound rock. He was so proud. He'd prance home with this rock. And he collected them underneath some what do they call that stuff? Juniper bush here. Once we had it removed about 25, 30 years ago, there were like 20 of them left, right? There's these massive rocks he'd bring home. And when he died, he was 12 years old. His teeth were just ground down to nothing because he's one of those dogs. He never fetched a ball. He only fetched rocks. And he carried the biggest home, rocks up. So also the goat would jump up on the top of our cars because he's a goat, right? So our dog Mickey learned how to get on the roofs of cars when he was like a year old, 2 years. So he spent the rest of his life sleeping on tops of cars, which is amazing because we used to have the monastery across the street, right? And they had prayer meetings on Mondays. We just get about maybe 25 cars lined up the road, dead end, right? And he would pick the most expensive car, like a Mercedes or a Cadillac, get up on top of it, right on the roof, and just sit there, because he was like a lion or something, like a goat lion. And I don't know, nobody ever complained. I have no idea how, but he did that. And so we had to get rid of the goat after about a year and a half. He just got too aggressive. Just anytime my mom put the garbage, he just butt her, just boom. And its thorns were getting a little too long. Thorns, antlers, whatever the fuck they are. So Mickey continued the rest of his life to sleep until he got a little too old. Maybe he was like 6, 7. He would sleep on the top of our car every night. It was this little a Datsun 210, little shitty little. It was called a Bumblebee or whatever it was, Honeybee. So it was this mustard yellow car with a black stripe with a honeybee on it that said Honeybee. And through the years, things happened. Like my dad hit some deer on the way home from San Francisco coming down the freeway, so it was all smashed up in front. And then my brother, somehow the brakes failed at the Burgess' house, so it started falling, rolling backwards, and the door was open and it caught. And so we had an orange door put on this, a bright orange door on this mustard yellow Honeybee car. So pathetic. My dad didn't care about anything really. And so Mickey slept on the roof of the car every night. And so when my dad got up for work in the morning, 5, 6 in the morning, and he had like they would always do the commute, right? Carpooling, right? The carpool lane back then. I think it was like you had to have 3 people back then. So we have like 3 grown San Francisco cops from Marin County carpooling into San Francisco. And when he'd get up in the morning and Mickey'd been on the roof the whole night, my dad would have to punch the roof back up so you could actually fit your head in there. And the orange door and the smashed up. It's like, I remember one time my mom said that some woman, some wife of one of the cops said, "You're not getting in that fucking car." So that was the beginning of our hikes. And so we basically just hiked in the canyon behind us, Blackstone Canyon, every day. searching my brother, and it was huge into collecting snakes and salamanders and lizards, and he eventually just got all of them. And I don't think the canyon ecosystem recovered. This was like 75 to about 80, and they're 81. The ecosystem didn't recover until never. It's not even recovered now because he got all the fucking critters, and they're all gone now. And then Mickey, our dog, he would go out there. There used to be squirrels. He killed all the squirrels off for like 20 years. No squirrels, no mountain lions, no coyotes, because that was Mickey's job. Mickey would go out. He was never kept in the backyard because he was so, I don't know, what's the word for it? He had the escapability of Houdini, right? So he could get out of any backyard. Even if he was in the garage, we would park our giant station wagon against the wooden garage door, and he could push out the wooden sides. And we used to put a giant barbells from a bench press and put them in the openings where it shouldn't be open, but he'd still get out, right? And I remember when we were kids, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and we were going to go to the city for something like Christmas or Thanksgiving or something like that, back to Westlake or San Francisco. And my dad would like, all right, everyone get in the car. We had four kids, right? 4 kids, this tiny little honeybee thing with the orange door and the smashed roof and the crushed front. No one ever wore a seatbelt, ever, right? Ever, not until the 90s, right? This is 1978, 79. And my dad would say, get in the car slowly, because Mickey be in the garage, right? And he would put the car in neutral and just back out slowly so he couldn't hear it. And then we just go down the road, and all of a sudden, here's Mickey. He escaped, Houdini, right? He'd be chasing us down the fucking road. I swear to God, this isn't hyperbole. As we were getting on the highway, on the freeway, 101, we'd see him running up behind us on the on-ramp. I swear to God, this dog could run 35 miles an hour because he learned how to run up slow with the goat. So he's the most powerful dog in the world. He could run like 40 miles an hour, right? I don't know why my dad didn't just do like 100 down the roads, but back then the speed limit was 25, so he probably did like 30, 35. So he's right behind us the whole time. And so that's Mickey, right? Eventually, when he was about 12 years old, my dad took him a hike on a warm summer's morning. Ain't about to know it. He took him for a hike with their other dog, Sadie, a Newfoundland black lab mix that we stole from Tahoe from some people. And he would always hike. My dad would wake up every morning and he would hike to the top of our hill, which is about 500-600 foot straight up. And it was a hot day, and Mickey was 12, and he came home, and I think he had like a stroke. And he lasted about a day or two next to the sliding glass door, and we knew it was the end. And my brother and my dad, they folded him up in a tarp, and they buried him in our orchard backyard, which a year or two later, they ended up stealing from us and putting houses back there. So I guarantee when they were using their earth movers, they dug up furry Mickey. That was Mickey's whole life. But my dad, so we did that. We hiked the canyon every fucking day. I think when I was about 10, so Mickey's still alive. It's 1980 because Mickey died in 88. My dad decided, let's go hike Mount Tam. And we started from the Dixie Steps in Mill Valley. You walk up the 500 feet of 1,000 steps. But he didn't realize, my dad at the time, I'm 10, he's 42. And we ended up on the freeway, highway up there near the mountain inn on Mount Tam. And so we're walking along with Mickey, no leash, cars flying by at 50 miles an hour. Somehow we got back onto the railroad grade, right? It used to be a railroad that would go up to the top of Mount Tam, and we went all the way around. It was a hot day, like 85. All the way to the top of the mountain. with the dog. Dogs weren't even allowed. We didn't know it. My dad never knew it. So, got to the top of the mountain, did this fucking hike, amazing hike. So that was our first big hike. I don't know if my dad knew that he didn't know that he just drives to the top of Mount Tam, but we did the whole fucking thing from Mill Valley. And I've been to the top of Mount Tam probably 1,000 times since then. I think I've only hiked to the top maybe twice because you can just drive to the top. And then once you get to the top, the parking lot, there's the lookout tower, fire lookout is about another 250 feet above. So you can do that. But yeah, we did the whole thing. And so we pretty much just did the canyon thing though. Until I was about 17, I discovered this book, Mount Tamalpais Trails. Mount Tamalpais Trails. Mount Tam's only about 10 miles from here, but it's 30 minutes. And my dad at work, he's a cop still, he decided to Xerox the entire book for me and it had these great details about every trail. So we ended up hiking every trail, my dad and I, between 87, 88. And there, we did all the trails on Mount Tam. And then right around 88, 89, I'm like, that's not enough. We need to go for road trips. So my dad started taking me on these road trips. And I remember my sister calling, thinking, what's wrong with Danny? Is he gay? He doesn't want to go to parties? I didn't want to go to parties. I don't want to go to parties, hang out with the girls and the kids. All I cared about was hiking mountains, redwood trees, and playing my fucking guitar, learning every solo from Leonard Skinner by heart, right? That was my thing. So around our first quick road trip in 87 was to Calaveras Big Tree State Park, but we got there and it started like snowing. So my dad, let's get out of here. They were scared. Let's go home. So we were there for like 10 minutes. But after that, started 88, 89. We took this first trip to Mount Shasta, 89. I was 19 years old. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe when I saw Mount Shasta. I was shocked. The stunning beauty of this mountain. And we hiked up Mount Shasta a ways. It's about 2,000 feet. And went up to Castle Lake and McLeod Falls and all that stuff. And that same summer, I was, 89. So I was 19. He was, I guess, 51. We went up Mount Lassen. And he used to have heart issues way back when. I remember when he was about 38, 39 when we first moved here. He went for an 18-mile run with Marty Walsh to the cheese factory and back, which was about 18 miles. And he ended up in the hospital. And they thought he had a heart attack. So he had heart conditions always. That's probably why he ended up with Alzheimer's later. It all has to do with blood pressure and stuff like that. So in 89, when we did Mount Lassen, he only made it to about 9,500 feet. I think the mountain's 10,467 feet, and because he had the fluttering going on. But then, like in 1990, we did Trinity Alps. 89 still, we did Yosemite, the Eastern Sierra. Later on, we did Mount Whitney area. We never went to the top, but we did Mount Whitney, Bishop. I love the Eastern Sierra. That was my thing, Eastern Sierra. Up into the Redwood country, the state park at Humboldt, Redwood State Park, Richardson Grove, all the shit around here, Point Reyes, of course, all the Mount Tam, Marin Headlands, Samuel P. Taylor, Big Basin, Mount Diablo, the Tahoe area, Sequoia National Park, Kings Canyon National Park to see the giant sequoias, which was my love. We did Crater Lake. My biggest love was going to, I still have this on video, but the videos back when you took those on the cameras are so small, they don't have adapters anymore, so you really can't put them into an adapter. So I'd have to send them for someone to get them made. whatever. I think memories are better than videos anyway. Fuck video. Memories are better. So I went to Sequoia National Park, went through the Sequoia, Giant Sequoia Grove, which was killer, but over about half hour, an hour away in Kings Canyon was Grant's Grove with the Grant tree, the General Grant tree, which was like 38 feet wide at the base. And we filmed the whole thing, took pictures. It was amazing. I think it was like 1989. That's my terrible mullet, like I still have. And that was great stuff. And then Big Sur, we did all the shit. But I think when I right around 31, 32, we kind of just stopped. He was getting a little older. I think he was like 63, 64. And I was getting fat and out of shape, and I didn't really care about it as much because I'd already done the whole thing. But we had done so many great hikes around Mount Tam, and we discovered Cataract Trail, which is amazing on Mount Tam, and then Carson Falls, got some great pictures in there. And yeah, so we did a lot of stuff around here. I remember, so in 1985, I started getting really into the Giants. I was into baseball cards and started in 78. And so my first World Series were the Dodgers, Yankees, 77, 78. And we rooted for the Dodgers because the Yankees were the big bad Yankees. And so in the early 80s, I started getting into the Giants. And in 84, 85 became freshman year, 15 years old, my favorite Giants team of all time. That big team. Mike Krukow was on that team. Jose Uribe. This is the year before you got Will Clark and Robbie Thompson. So the 85 team was my favorite team. And they lost 100 games. Hello! But the announcers were Dave Glass. He was only there for a few years. I thought he was great. He's not really remembered except for being the mayor of Petaluma about 15, 20 years ago. And Hank Greenwald, my hero, of course. So we would go out to China Camp, this state park right on the bay. It's a state park in Terra Linda, about 15 minutes from here. And the only part of the bay that's like heavily forested right to the bay. And we would get on the canoe in the morning, probably 10, 11, sunny day. I remember just the light sparkling in the water, that wonderful thing you could see. And I had the Giants game, and I would just lay back in the canoe. My dad would take the canoe out with us. And we'd go out to these, they were called the duck lines. We got the duck lines like 3 miles away. And the whole way out there, I'm listening to the Giants game. My dad's rowing. He's doing the rowing the whole time. And I'm back listening to the Giants game. Of course, they lost because they went 62 and 100 that year. But just listening to Hank Greenwald and Dave Glass and seeing the lights sparkle off the water with my dad rowing was some of the great times ever, right? So it's good stuff. So that's my memories of my dad's hikes with me. And I remember one time back in 88, 89, we went to the top of Big Rock Ridge near Big Rock, which is the highest prominence of our ridge that starts here. This is about 5 miles to the west. We started at Big Rock at the top of Lucas Valley. And we went up there and we were looking down on George Lucas's property. And all of a sudden it started snowing on us. I was like, whoa, snowing. And another time, I think I was about 19, I'd say. And I'd been working with my friends. We were all about 18, 19, somewhere in there, 20. And we had this guy that would hire us on as movers, a really nice guy. He was probably in his 40s. And one day I was in a high rise in San Francisco and moving couches or whatever, beds and stuff, and furniture. The next day I'm like, it's supposed to snow on Mount Tam. I'm not going to this fucking work, right? So me and my dad went the next day. No one else is around, right? The gates were open. We went to the top of Mount Tam, parked in the parking lot, hiked down to West Point Inn and back to the top. And it was snowing heavily on us. It was awesome. It wasn't really sticking too much, but it was snowing, heavy snow. This is March of '89, I think. And it was amazing as we were sitting there. My friends were in the high rises moving couches, and I'm looking down, and you could see the sun shining on San Francisco. And my dad and I are sitting there walking through heavy snow on Mount Tam. So that was one of my favorites. Yeah, we also did the Alameda Falls 12-mile round trip at Point Reyes to go see Alameda Falls and whatever. That's it. That's all I got. Good night, y'all. Hello. Can I open my eyes? Hello.